It says, in those days when they're out of Israel, wicked men. Okay, in those days. Just as in the book of Judges, it says, in those days there were no kings over Israel, so every man did according to what seemed right in their own eyes. It's the same thing because at this time in Judah, in Jerusalem, there was no king over Israel. The last king was the foolish guy in the book of Jeremiah. I don't remember what his name is, where they told him that war was coming and what he needed to do, but he did not listen. And then, I think the Babylonians came and they killed him. He and his son was trying to escape. They blinded him and they killed him along the journey. That was the last king ruled over Israel. And that's why people don't understand when the Messiah came on the scene, there was no king. He was there to merge the two kingdoms that were separated. So when it says, in those days when they're out of Israel, wicked men, now the details or the action is going to explain. It says, who persuaded many, saying, let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us. Wait. Let us go to the book of Deuteronomy chapter 7. Book of Deuteronomy chapter 7 and verse 1. It says, when the Lord thy God shall bring thee into the land whither thou goest to possess it, and hath cast out many nations before thee, the Hittites, and the Girgashites, and the Amorites, and the Canaanites, and the Perizzites, and the Hittites, and the Jebusites, 7 nations greater and mightier than thou. And when the Lord thy God shall deliver them before thee, thou shalt smite them and utterly destroy them. Thou shalt make no covenant with them. So this is what they transgress here. It says, and in those days went there out of Israel wicked men who persuaded many, saying, let us go and make a covenant with the heathen. The same thing the Most High commanded us not to do. At this time here, it was these 7 nations, but now we are dispersed. So guess what? The law still remains. It's not going to be the Hittites, the Girgashites, and Canaanites, or whoever, but wherever you are, the nations round about, do not make covenants with them. Not just marriages, talking about certain political agreements, religious agreements, and those type of things. Do not make these covenants, right? It says, let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us. For since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow. Now, sometimes it's hard to understand when we're looking at history. So what we'll have to do is look at this in today's day, get the understanding, and go back to this time period with this understanding. Now, think about it. For a man to persuade many people to do evil, what does he have to have? He has to have power. For example, for a man to tell people that you can accept LGBT and they can march and they can do whatever, for a man to do that, they have to have power. A regular peasant cannot do that, right? And this is why you see, like in the music industry or the entertainment industry in general, there is so much money pumped into it because the power structure that is behind it to persuade the people. They can make men wear skirts and dresses. That's the power behind it. You cannot just get up and bring the Bible to somebody and say, oh, the Bible says don't do this. For a person to do that, they have to have a certain power. So to tell a person that it's okay to eat pork, shrimp, lobster, you just pray over it. You have to have power for the person to believe in you. Not believe in the Bible, but believe in you. That they believe the lies that you're telling. For them to tell you, for a person to say the Israelites are, they don't exist anymore, or whatever it is, God is just dealing with everybody, you have to have power for someone to believe that, right? So it's the same thing now. So going back to these days, when it says, in those days went there out of Israel wicked men who persuaded many. These were the top class people of Israel, the priests, the rich people, the people with power, not the regular fisherman going to sea, not the farmers, not the shepherds tending to the flock, and that, no, not those people. They didn't have that power to influence them. Matter of fact, they don't even have power to influence them to do good, much more to do evil, because when the Messiah came on the scene and he took the fishermen and so forth, and they were doing things, guess what? He had to use miracle to convince the people. But you see, it's different with the wicked, because evil was prospering, and then the good people, they covet the evil. This is why the Most High said, do not covet. You see evil prospering, and then you covet the evil. Now you want to prosper too. So what? You have to go be a confederate to them or with them and be part of what they're doing. Right? It says, for since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow. Okay, we're not making any money anymore. So now we have to do what? We have to start marching with this type of flag. We have to start doing this over there. We have to start doing that over there. We have to promote the birth controls for the young girls. We have to push this for that. That's the same thing, right? So these people are your politicians today and so forth. The teachers, the pastors, the doctors, these people that pushing the C-section so much into for the black people and so forth. After 3 cuts, you mess up your stomach. You probably can't give birth anymore. They push the sterilization and the pills and all of these things that is like, you have to do this, or nothing is safe anymore natural. It has to be done this way. Yeah, because you're getting your incentive. You're blessed by the devil to do that, to push that. To know nothing is not wrong with this young lady, but then you are telling her that she has to do a C-section to bring forth her baby. We don't have nurses like in Exodus when it talks about Shipwa, something like that, Shipwa, where they don't do the commandment of the king. These people are not the same today and back in this time, right? So it says, then certain of the people were so forward hearing that they went to the king, who gave them license to do after the ordinances of the heathen. So guess what? Bigger matters were in Israel rather than matters concerning the enemy, because now you're dealing with internal affairs. You're dealing with a civil war, because you had half of Israel that were Orthodox. They were committed to the original or the traditional or the customs or the law. Then you have the other half that were what? Pro-Greeks. So now this is staged. So this is happening there. This conflict is happening internally. And then the wicked, they go to the enemy. So guess what? Now there's a power structure behind the coup. Well, thank God for people like Judah Maccabees. Verse 14 says, whereupon they built a place of exercise at Jerusalem according to the customs of the heathen. So now you had this priest. His name was Jason. Let's go to the book of 2nd Maccabees. 2nd Maccabees chapter 4 verse 9. It says, beside this, he promised to assign 150 more if he might have license to set him up a place for exercise and for the training up of the youth in the fashion of the heathen, and to write them of Jerusalem by the name of Antiochus, which then the king had granted, and he had gotten into his hand the rule, he forthwith brought his own nation to Greekish fashion. Hellenization. Integration. Right? Because if you're, once you start to learn your history in the language of the people ruling over you, that is in itself integration. So this Hellenization is not only about the Greeks, but you had traitors in Israel that conformed to the ways of the heathen, right? And it's the same thing today. You have these school systems, but guess what? We don't control the books that are, being taught to our sons and daughters. They control that. So it's the same thing. Whose history are we learning? What type of heroes do we know of? We don't honor Judah Maccabeus and the work that he and his brother did and his father. You know the heroes that we know? Black Panther, Clark Kent, whatever they are, Spider-Man, those type of people, all Europeans. We don't know about Marcus Garvey. We don't know about Paul Bogle. Right? So there's always an agenda. So at the end of the day, we don't have an image to stand up to say, okay, this man did this great works in Israel. I want to be like him. I want to learn of his tactics. I want to learn of his mind frame. I want to see how the Most High fought for him and stood up with him through all these battles. So you can get a portion of that spirit and courage and remove fear from us. Verse 15. And made themselves uncircumcised and forsook the holy covenant and joined themselves to the heathen and were sold to do mischief. So guess what? It's the same today. They don't push the circumcision of their sons. It's the same thing. Why? Why our political leaders would push the agenda of the people, the countries ruling over them, but they cannot push this? Like I said, it says wicked Israelite. These are men who are in power, political leaders. They have the power to influence you to do something evil and not to do something good. Why the doctors, they don't push this agenda of circumcision just as they push the C-section? Why? Right? It says, and made themselves uncircumcised and forsook the holy covenant and joined themselves to the heathen and were sold to do mischief. Now when the kingdom was established before Antiochus, he thought to reign over Egypt, that he might have the dominion over 2 realms. So like, talk about the greed. They always make war with each other because Egypt, who ruled over Egypt? Ptolemy. That was the Ptolemaic region. And you had the Seleucid Empire, right? Now remember, he already went and took part of the empire, right? Now he wants to go down to the borders of half of Egypt. That's what he's talking about there. That he might have the dominion of the 2 realms. Wherefore he entered into Egypt with a great multitude, with chariots and elephants and horsemen and a great navy. This was not a simple army. So when he says and elephants, it's not just elephants. 1 elephant can carry like 32 people, and this is how one of the sons died. Eliezer. He went under the elephant to stab it, but it fell upon him. There was a big thing. It had 32 people. Imagine one elephant having 32 people. That is much to fear, right? So it says, and made war against Ptolemy, king of Egypt. But Ptolemy was afraid of him and fled, and many were wounded to death. Now Ptolemy allied himself to the Roman Republic, right? So he had to run away from the Seleucid Empire. Thus they got strong cities in the land of Egypt, and he took the spoils thereof. They set up their own pharaohs and so forth. And after that Antiochus had smitten Egypt, he returned again in the 143rd year, and went up against Israel and Jerusalem with a great multitude. And he entered proudly into the sanctuary, and took away the golden altar, and the candlestick of the light, and all the vessels thereof, and the tables of the shewbread, and the pouring vessels, and the vials, and the censers of gold, and the veil, and the crown, and the golden ornaments that were before the temple, all which he pulled off. He took also the silver and the gold, and the precious vessel. Also he took the hidden treasures which he found, and when he had taken all away, he went into his own land, having made a great massacre, and spoken very proudly. Therefore there was a great mourning in Israel in every place where they were. Guess what? Jace wasn't doing the job fast enough. So he had to do it himself.